Good morning, everyone. Just would like to welcome everyone to Assembly Judiciary. Welcome to everyone that's here in Carson City, as well as anyone watching online today. Secretary, please take the roll.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Here. Assemblywoman Cohen. Here. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Gallant. Here. Assemblyman Gray. Here. Assemblywoman Hanson. Here. Assemblywoman Hardy. Here. Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch. Here. Assemblywoman Marzola. Here. Assemblywoman Mosca. Here. Assemblywoman Newby. Here. Assemblyman Ortlicker. Here. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Present. Assemblyman Urick. Here. And Chair Miller.
Here. And with that, just a few reminders that, again, asking everyone to make sure they turn down the volume on any of their electric devices, as I am right now. And we will have public comment at the end of today's meeting. There have been a few adjustments to today's agenda, so we're actually hearing one bill and have two bills on work session for today. So we will actually begin with the work session. Again, this is not an opportunity to rehear the bill, only if there's any specific questions. And I believe the bill sponsors and presenters are here in the audience as they are waiting the status of their work session. So with that, I will ask Ms. Diane Thornton, our policy analyst, to go ahead and walk us through the first bill, Assembly Bill 35. Members, you all have your work session documents, as I know they were sent electronically as well. Ms. Thornton?
Thank you, Chair. Again, Diane Thornton for the record, Legislative Council Bureau. Our first bill on work session today is Assembly Bill 35, which revises provisions governing the access of offenders to telecommunication devices. This was heard in committee on February 23rd. This bill removes statutory provisions authorizing offenders to have access to a telecommunication device and instead requires the Director of the Department of Corrections to adopt regulations authorizing an offender to possess, have in his or her custody or control, and use a telecommunications device for certain purposes, including communicating with his or her child, appearing in court, receiving medical care, applying for a governmental program, performing legal research, and obtaining educational training. There's one amendment proposed by the Director of the Department of Corrections, James Zarenda. He proposed the following. First, to clarify in Section 1 of the bill that an offender shall not have access to an unauthorized telecommunication device. Second, clarify in Section 1 of the bill that a telecommunication device may be used in obtaining a high school equivalency certificate rather than a general equivalency diploma or equivalent diploma. And lastly, revise in Section 1 of the bill to provide that a telecommunication device may be used in obtaining a degree. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. With that, members, are there any questions? Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just looking at the amended language. I was under the assumption, and possibly the incorrect assumption, that we were putting in language about the devices being, the company being nonprofit. Did that not come up?
Director Zarenda.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the Judiciary Committee. James Zarenda, for the record, Department of Correction Director. No, that has never come up about being nonprofit. The vendor went through a RFP selection process and publicly has been announced the beginning of this week, I believe, is ViaPath. They're a for-profit organization.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. Can you please tell us about the purpose behind the amendment having to do with the educational section?
James Zarenda, for the record. I guess that was more, well, I saw first in the bill that it was a typo, that it was offenders shall not have access to an authorized wireless device. Well, that's not what the bill's about. I wanted to make sure it was clear that it's unauthorized. They're not to have access to unauthorized. It was a typo error that was in the bill. The other part on the education, that was brought up during the last hearing from one of the state education systems, that it's actually called a certificate. I didn't know the difference between the actual GED or educational certificate. So it was just to clarify, for the high school piece, is a certificate, a high school equivalency certificate. So it was something that the Education Department brought up on language.
Proceed.
Okay, so we're not limiting what they can receive, we're just making sure the terminology is correct.
James Renner for the record, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I will say that Director Zarenda we had spoken about that even before the bill presentation, that he explained so that it's not limiting whether someone gets a high school diploma, a GED, a college degree, that it's not limiting any academic attainments that are possible. Assemblywoman Hanson?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify the vendor that you have the RFP out on, how long is the contract? Those do come up for whatever the service will be provided. How often do those contracts? I don't know if the state has a requirement that it be visited every so often.
So this is James Renner for the record. You're going through contract discussions right now, but the contract is anywhere between 3 and 5 years, and we're doing the contract negotiations now with the system, because it doesn't just involve the wireless devices. It's with video visiting capabilities and also phone capabilities, telephones.
Okay, and I'd just like to remind members that our questions should be based on the amendments and new information. It's not a rehearing of the bill and topics that were discussed during the hearing. Assemblyman Gray?
Yes, ma'am. My question does pertain to the amendments. And so the last amendment, Section 1 of the bill, provide that a telecommunications device may be used in obtaining a degree. What about vocational certificates and things? Would that be authorized still?
James Aranda, for the record, that's correct, because that's going to be one of our biggest pushes is VOCED for services through this. Yes, it is.
Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming up to answer all of our questions today. I know we just had some discussion about making sure the fees were reasonable. We had some discussion of maybe putting that in the language in case at some point in time you're not with us and then someone would still have to follow those guidelines. Was there any discussion about that?
So James Renner, for the record, that's the part of the contract negotiations. We will determine based upon the contract of how much revenue it needs to pay for services, and that'll determine on the fees. The fees, since the offenders will be utilizing these devices a lot more than they can today with regular telephones and that, the revenue will come in, will be a lot more, so the services will actually cost less.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, not seeing any other questions, I would just ask that members are still interested when that contract is finalized, if you could send a copy to the committee.
James Renner, for the record, absolutely.
Thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and entertain a motion on Assembly Bill 35. Motion. I have a motion to amend and do pass from Vice Chair Marzola on Assembly Bill 35. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblywoman Newby. With that, I will go ahead and, is there any further discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously. And I will go ahead and give that floor speech to Assemblywoman Mosca. Next on our agenda is the work session for Assembly Bill 51. Ms. Thornton, will you walk us through Assembly Bill 51?
Thank you, Chair. Assembly Bill 51 makes various changes relating to public safety, sponsored by this committee and heard in committee on February 22nd. This bill extends the period during which a peace officer is required to arrest a person suspected of committing battery, which constitutes domestic violence, from within 24 hours after the alleged battery to within 14 after the alleged battery. The bill also expands the list of acts that constitute domestic violence, and the bill prohibits granting of probation to or suspension of sentence of a person who is charged with committing battery which constitutes domestic violence that is punishable as a gross misdemeanor to felony. There's one amendment proposed to this measure. It's proposed by John Jones and Jennifer Noble, representing the Nevada District Attorneys Association, and the amendment does the following. First, it amends sections 1 through 3 of the bill to provide that a peace officer is required to arrest a person suspected of committing a battery which constitutes domestic violence within 24 hours if there's contact with the person or within 7 days after the alleged battery if the person is not on the scene. It deletes section 4 through 13, section 15 and 17 through 20 of the bill, thereby removing the language attempts to commit from the bill. And finally, it amends section 16, subsection 11 to clarify that only felony battery domestic violence cases are non-probational. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And with that, members, any questions? We'll start with Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. And let's again remember that we're asking questions about the amendment, not rehearing the bill. Assemblywoman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a question about the removal of sections 3, hold on. I think part of the, what I read of the amendment removes sections 3 through 14,
That's,
through 13,
or 4 through 13.
4 through 13.
Okay.
Could we get just a clarification of what that actually, how that actually affects the bill in more detail?
Yes, I will ask Mr. Jones to come up.
Thank you, Chair Miller. John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. The sections that are proposed to be deleted, sections 4 through 13, 15, and 17 through 20, all added the word attempt to commit to the definition of act of domestic violence. Currently, an attempt is not an act of domestic violence, so we were proposing to add attempt to that definition. However, we have, through negotiations with the public defenders and others, agreed to remove that from the bill.
And thank you. And that was what was discussed during the bill presentation as well, that those would be coming forth, correct?
John Jones on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association, that is correct.
Thank you. Any additional questions, members? Not seeing any, I will go ahead and entertain a motion for Assembly Bill 51. Motion. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola and a second from Assemblyman Gray. Any further discussion? Okay, then I'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Again, the motion passes unanimously. I will assign the floor speech for Assembly Bill 51 to Assemblywoman Hardy. And with that, I will go ahead and close the work session portion of our meeting today and move on to our bill hearing. So our bill hearing today, we have one bill. It's Assembly Bill 260, presented by Minority Leader O'Neill. And this measure exempts veteran service organizations from various fees imposed on persons conducting business within the state. So with that, I will open the hearing, and please, when you are ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Miller. And I want to say good morning to all of you, the members of the Committee of Judiciary. For the record, I am P.K. O'Neill, Assemblyman representing Assembly District 40. Today, I would like to present to you Assembly Bill 260 for your consideration. Assembly Bill 260 exempts officers and agents of veteran service organizations from their annual registration fees imposed by the Secretary of State's office. And I want to clarify that Assembly Bill 260 only exempts federal recognized veteran service organizations and their officers and agents of these organizations when making business entity filings related to the veteran service organizations. This bill does not exempt businesses which are owned by veterans from their annual business licensing fee or other business filing fees under Title VII of NRS. Now, if I may, I'd like to go into this very long and detailed, intricate description of this very voluminous bill that I'm presenting to you today. As stated, Section 1, the bill exempts veteran service organizations and any agents or officers of a veteran service organizations from certain business fees, including the issuance and renewal of a state business license, Filing is required in connection with the registration of a registered agent. Various filings to satisfy requirements imposed on a business entity. Section 2, the bill defines a veteran service organization as any organization recognized by the United States Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the representation of veterans pursuant to federal law 38 U.S.C. 5902. With me today, I have Tony LePevla, Chairman of the United Veterans Legislative Council, for some background information and the importance of this pending legislation before you. And Chair, if I may, I'd like to introduce Tony.
Andy.
Andy, what am I was thinking of Tony Yarborough, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
God, I can't forget him.
Yeah.
Yes, we all miss,
I apologize.
no problem. Please proceed, thank you.
Chair Miller and committee members, my name is Andy Lepilbit. And for those of you that don't know, we had a remembrance for Tony Yarborough yesterday for VAMDAL. He was a great asset to our state and to all our veterans. I am the chair since 2019 of the United Veterans Legislative Council, representing the 279,000 veterans in our state, not counting their families, which brings it to over 500,000 Nevadans. But we directly represent the various federally recognized veteran service organizations, the Disabled American Veterans, the American Legion, the Vietnam Veterans Organization, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW, the Military Order of the Purple Heart. All of these are federally recognized, and this bill deals with those people, not the little person that wants to set up a nonprofit as a veterans group to do something good for our people, but these are strictly those that are chartered and recognized by the federal government, and the entire body of the UVLC and the state support this bill entirely. It's another burden removing it from our veterans. It's just another one of those burdens taking off their shoulders, and they're here to help their fellow veterans. You'll see most of what your contact or what you see in the news is actually our veterans groups, the ones mentioned in this bill, that are out there at their own dime helping our other veterans. And one of their biggest jobs today is helping our desert warriors that are home now. This last 20 years has been a real tough time for our young vets, and a bunch of us old guys and gals are the ones here to help them. And that's our job every day. So we are entirely in support of this bill. Thank you.
Chair, I'd just like to add, too, that one of the other issues is that several of these veterans organizations are having trouble meeting their dues. The membership isn't there. They want to continue their work, but they're financially strapped, and this would be a big asset to them. And with that, I'm here for any questions along with Andy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And my first question is, Andy, as I am personally a member of the Nevada Veterans Commission that's having a meeting right now, I did send an email, but am I excused from that meeting right now?
Andy LaPilba, for the record, no, we want you to take care of this, then run over there.
Okay, I will. As soon as we're done, I'll jump out.
And Mossgrove is here in town, so you're not doing everybody's here.
Oh, okay. I will as soon as this meeting concludes. Thank you so much. He's like, you can be tardy. You are not excused. With that, I will open it up to member questions. Our first one's with Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this important issue today. I just wondered if you could speak to the amount that these fees typically run for these organizations.
Both of us will answer that. I had conversation with the Secretary of State's office, actually the Secretary of State himself, about this, and he said that he would research it, and if it had any negative impact to their budget, he would come and speak and present a fiscal note on it. If you notice, there are no fiscal notes. He said, though, that he felt that it would be a minuscule impact to him. So it's an assumption on my part, without the fiscal note and without the presence of the Secretary of State's office, that it is a small amount. Mr. LaPelle can actually speak, I think, to some of the pricing.
Or we can have the representative from the Chief of Staff from the Secretary of State come and speak to that if you'd like. He can respond to that.
If you so desire, Chair. You the boss for me.
We believe you. We just, on the record, coming from the Secretary of State's office.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
He snuck in on me.
Chair Miller, members of the committee, Gabriel DeCara for the record, Chief Deputy Secretary of State. That is correct. There would be no real fiscal impact to this. There would be some changes that we have to make on our forms and in our online filing system, but there are plenty of changes that we have to make to our forms and online filing system regardless, and so we do not believe that this would have any fiscal impact.
Thank you for that. And not that this is a fiscal committee, but we still appreciate the willingness of the Secretary of State's office to work and support this mission.
Chair Miller and committee members, just for the record, Andrew LaPelbit here. The fees basically are officer reports every year that have to be done, and that's typically a $50 fee. Resident agent fee, which I believe now is $125. I think so. Yeah, $125. And when they make changes to some of these in the middle of a year for veteran service organizations, those will be repeated. And every time they change the resident agent, those are repeated. A lot of our veteran service organizations, they don't have a funding source, so they'll actually keep the same person as a resident agent as long as that fellow or gal stays alive. So they just don't have to pay the other fee. But those are the common ones. There are other small ones like that, and it's just an issue of, it's just another burden removed from our veterans groups.
Thank you for that. And our next question is from Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this as an active duty military spouse. I appreciate it. And so my question was if other states do this, or is this something that we'll be taking the lead on?
Bet you never heard this. That's an excellent question, may I say. So excellent, you got me. And even in consultation with Andy, we do not know of that. So I would like to say Nevada's always taking the lead in veterans issue. We are a very veteran state, but in all honesty, I can't answer that directly for you. And I'm not even sure we could do the research on it.
Chair, committee members, for the record, Andrew LaPelbit. We are, the stats that we have, we are the 7th most populous veteran state in the nation. Our governors, and everyone before us have been very dedicated to making us a veteran-friendly state. We do not know what other states are doing this, but I guess is there a way of researching that?
We could figure out some stuff, some Googling stuff, but if not, I would just like to echo your sentiments. I mean, as someone who's been heavily involved in the veterans community, I think the last stat I heard is that we're almost 13% veterans and military families in the state of Nevada. And for me, that's the same amount as like a racial minority group, right? And so the same thing, you're absolutely right. Nevada has always and continues to strive to be a veteran family, a veteran supportive, a veteran friendly, and I believe we can still achieve the goal of becoming the premier state for all veterans and military families. And so if we lead and we're the first one in the nation to do it, again, then so be it.
Chair and committee members, Andrew LaPelbit for the record. We are over 16% when you
Oh,
count
16?
When you count the families. And our actually veteran number is around 8.9% of the population. So 500,000 Nevadans are either a veteran or an immediate family member of a veteran.
Thank you for that. So we've actually increased, and we also see those, the other committees that we sit on, that where veterans issues come into other committees as well as education, heavily in education, and really touch multiple committees in here. So again, I echo that we continue to strive to be the premier state for veterans. With that, our next question is from Assemblywoman Gallant.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, because I know I have to file my business with the state, and then I also have to file it with the municipalities as well. So would this also kind of zero out the fees at the local level as well, or is this just at the state level?
Andrew LaPelbert for the record, Chair and Assemblywoman. There are no fees on the local level for our veterans groups unless they're doing some kind of local fundraiser where food's involved, they got to get permits or something like that. All of our veteran service organizations, the registrations in our state are with the state, not with any of the cities or counties. And it's only if there's a function that we're involved with, like the DAV, Disabled American Veterans, they're going to do a fundraiser. There may be a fee because we got to get a food permit or something like that. There are no fees with the individual cities and counties.
Assemblyman Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to tell you guys thank you for everything you guys do for veterans, and I think this will be one more step in helping veterans. So often you guys step in and you're their advocate filing for their disability and things like that, whereas they get mired down in the system and tend to walk away from it if they do it themselves. So I think this is absolutely an excellent way to help them move forward in their mission. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. So I looked up 38 USC Section 5902, and you mentioned the groups that this covers, and those are established groups. And I want to make, and so we're not talking about, unfortunately, those fly-by-night groups that sometimes use veterans. They scam people using veterans and say that they're going to benefit veterans. But are these groups where there are people who, where the executives are making a lot of money, or are these groups where it's all volunteer based?
Chair and committee members, Andrew LaPelbert for the record, United Veterans Legislative Council, entirely unpaid, all volunteer, all elected within the body of each organization. And each of these bodies that we discussed earlier that you're talking about have charters from the federal government. So they were established all the way back. The oldest one is really the Medal of Honor Society, which is now the Legion of Valor, which started in 1890. Then it goes to the VFW, then the American Legion. I won't go through all of them. But just to give you an example, those are all 100-year-plus organizations, all originally chartered by the Congress, and all unpaid, all the way up to their national commanders. Now, we do have staff in these major groups that deal with membership and health issues and that are paid, but they're staff supporting all of our veterans. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, but just to clarify, these are all federally recognized nonprofit organizations. And I again, appreciate the clarification, because even when the bill first came out, I know there was some questions on whether or not it included a veteran going to open another business. And this isn't to open the car wash business. This is to keep just with the filing responsibilities of that veterans organization. So that clarity that you addressed at the beginning of the hearing is very appreciated. With that, I don't see any additional questions, so I would like to open it up for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 260. When you testify, please make sure to say your name and spell it so we have it correct for the record. And I know you'll tell us your branch and position and all that too. Thank you.
My name is, Madam Chair, thank you. My name is Thomas Spencer, Spencer. I am the chapter president of the Vietnam Veterans here in Carson City. I have been for many years. And one of the questions that was asked about spending money, a lot of it comes out of my own personal pocket. And I am for this bill. We have not had since COVID a lot of income. And so because of that, this would save us a few dollars. And we would appreciate you supporting this bill with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of AB 260? Not seeing anyone, I will give the phone number. Today, our phone number is 1-888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 842-690-99547. With that, broadcasting, will you open the line for anyone that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 260?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you for that. With that, then I will open it up for testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 260. As everyone's looking around to see who would dare walk up here. I mean, that happens on a lot of bills, but today it was very obvious. Not seeing anyone approach here in Carson City. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the line that would like to testify in opposition?
There are no callers at this time, Chair.
Thank you. With that, then again, we will go ahead and open it up for anyone that would like to testify in neutral of AB 260. Not seeing anyone here in Carson. Broadcasting, is there anyone online that would like to testify in neutral for AB 260?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will bring up the bill presenters for their final remarks.
Thank you, Chair. P.K. O'Neill, Assembly District 40. There was also speaking in favor on Nellis. The Henderson Chamber of Commerce has submitted a letter in support. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Otherwise, I would just thank you for the time and appreciate your consideration, as you've heard, for a very important bill to keep our veterans service organizations active and viable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on AB 260. Our last order of business today is public comment. So everyone will have up to 2 minutes to make public comment about something under the purview of this committee. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to make public comment? Thank you. Not seeing anyone here in Carson City. Is there anyone broadcasting on the lines that would like to make public comment?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Okay, then with that, I will go ahead and close public comment. And just one more announcement before we adjourn for today. We will be starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So with that, we are finished with our business, and I will see you all at 9 a.m. tomorrow.